Good evening. This evening I'm going to read sermons 5 and 6 from Dr. Jung's Red Book, Liber, the Reader's Edition, beginning on page 528. These are sermons 5 and 6 of the 7 sermons to the dead, and these were written between January 29th and February 8th, 1916. So I'll read the two sermons which flow into one another, and then I will read some footnotes. And I'm broadcasting so late tonight because of some busyness on the internet, I guess, so I couldn't get through earlier, but now here we are. So, beginning. When the following night came, the dead approached noisily, pushing and shoving. They were scoffing and exclaimed, "Teach us, fool, about the church and Holy Communion." But Philemon stepped before them and began to speak. And this is the 5th sermon to the dead. The world of the gods is made manifest in spirituality and in sexuality. The celestial ones appear in spirituality, the earthly in sexuality. Hi, Art. Welcome. Let me read that one more time for you. The world of the gods is made manifest in spirituality and in sexuality. The celestial ones appear in spirituality, the earthly ones in sexuality. Spirituality conceives and embraces. It is womanlike, and therefore we call it Mater Celestis, the celestial mother. Sexuality engenders and creates. It is manlike, and therefore we call it Philos, the earthly father. The sexuality of man is more earthly, that of woman is more spiritual. The spirituality of man is more heavenly, it moves toward the greater. The spirituality of woman is more earthly, it moves toward the smaller. Mendacious and devilish is the spirituality of man, and it moves toward the smaller. Mendacious and devilish is the spirituality of woman, and it moves toward the greater. Each shall go to its own place. Man and woman become devils to each other if they do not separate their spiritual ways, for the essence of creation is differentiation. The sexuality of man goes toward the earthly. The sexuality of woman goes toward the spiritual. Man and woman become devils to each other if they do not distinguish their sexuality. Man shall know the smaller, woman the greater. The man shall differentiate himself both from spirituality and sexuality. He shall call spirituality mother and set her between heaven and earth. He shall call sexuality Philos and set him between himself and earth. For the mother and the Philos are superhuman demons that reveal the world of the gods. They affect us more than the gods, since they are closely akin to our essence. If you do not differentiate yourselves from sexuality and from spirituality, and do not regard them as an essence both above and beyond you, you are delivered over to them as qualities of the pleroma. Spirituality and sexuality are not your qualities, not things you possess and encompass. Rather, they possess and encompass you, since they are powerful demons, manifestations of the gods, and hence reach beyond you, existing in themselves. No man has a spirituality unto himself or a sexuality unto himself. Instead, he stands under the law of spirituality and of sexuality. Therefore, no one escapes these demons. You shall look upon them as demons and as a common task and danger, a common burden that life has laid upon you. Thus life, too, is for you a common task and danger, as are the gods, and first and foremost, terrible Abraxas. Man is weak, and community is therefore indispensable. If your community is not under the sign of the mother, it is under the sign of the Phalos. Absence of community is suffering and sickness. Community is everything. Community in everything is dismemberment and dissolution. I'll read that again. Community in everything is dismemberment and dissolution. Differentiation leads to singleness. Singleness is opposed to community, but because of man's weakness with regard to the gods and the demons and their invincible law, community is necessary not for man's sake, but because of the gods. The gods drive you to community. Insofar as the gods impose community upon you, it is necessary. More is bad. In the community, every man shall submit to others, so that the community be maintained, for you need it. In singleness, every man shall place himself above the other, so that every man may come to himself and avoid slavery. Abstention shall hold good in community, extravagance in singleness. Community is depth, singleness is height. Right measure in community purifies and preserves. Right measure in singleness purifies and increases. Community gives us warmth. Singleness gives us light. When Philemon had finished, the dead remained silent and did not move, but looked at Philemon with expectation. But when Philemon saw that the dead remained silent and waited, he continued, and this is the 6th sermon to the dead. The demon of sexuality approaches our soul as a serpent. She is half human soul and is called thought, desire. The demon of spirituality descends into our soul as the white bird. He is half human soul and is called desire, thought. The serpent is an earthly soul, half demonic, a spirit, and akin to the spirits of the dead. Thus, too, like these, she swarms around in the things of the earth, making us fear them, or else having them arouse our craving. The serpent has a female nature, forever seeking the company of those dead who are spellbound by the earth, and who did not find a way across to singleness. The serpent is a whore. She courts the devil and evil spirits. She is a mischievous tyrant and tormentor, forever inveigling the most evil company. The white bird is a half-celestial soul of man. He abides with the mother, descending from time to time. The bird is manlike and is effective thought. He is chaste and solitary, a message of the mother. He flies high above the earth. He commands singleness. He brings knowledge from the distant ones who have departed before and attained perfection. He bears our word up to the mother. She intercedes, she warns, but she is powerless against the gods. She is a vessel of the sun. The serpent descends and cunningly lames the phallic demon, or else goads him on. She bears up and two crafty thoughts of the earthly, those thoughts that creep through every hole and cleave to all things with craving. Although the serpent does not want to, she must be of use to us. She flees our grasp, thus showing us the way which our human wits could not find. When Philemon had finished, the dead looked on with contempt and said, Cease this talk of the gods and demons and souls. We have known this for a long time. But Philemon smiled and replied, You poor souls, poor in flesh and rich in spirit. The meat was fat and the spirit thin. But how do you reach the eternal light? You mock my stupidity, which you too possess. You mock yourselves. Knowledge frees one from danger, but mockery is the other side of your belief. Is black less than white? You have rejected faith and retained mockery. Are you thus saved from faith? No, you bound yourselves to mockery and hence again to faith, and therefore you are miserable. But the dead were outraged and cried, We are not miserable, we are clever. Our thinking and feeling is as pure as clear water. We raise our reason. We mock superstition. Do you believe that your old folly reaches us? The childish delusion has overcome you, old one. What good is it to us? Philemon replied, What can do you any good? I free you from what still holds you to the shadow of life. Take this wisdom with you. Add this folly to your cleverness, this unreason to your reason, and you will find yourselves. If you were men, you would then begin your life and your life's way between reason and unreason, and live onward to the eternal light, whose shadow you lived in advance. But since you are dead, this knowledge frees you from life and strips you of your greed for men, and it also frees yourself from the shrouds that the light and the shadow lay on you. Compassion with men will overcome you, and from the stream you will reach solid ground. You will step forth from the eternal whirl unto the unmoving stone of rest, the circle that breaks flowing duration, and the flame will die down. I have fanned a glowing fire. I have given the murderer a knife. I have torn open, healed over wounds. I have quickened all movement. I have given the madman more intoxicating drink. I have made the cold colder, the heat hotter. Falseness even falser, goodness even better, weakness even weaker. This knowledge is the axe of the sacrificer. But the dead cried, Your wisdom is foolishness and a curse. You want to turn the wheel back? It will tear you apart, blinded one. Philemon replied, So this is what happened. The earth became green and fruitful again from the blood of the sacrifice. Flowers sprouted, the waves crashed into the sand. A silver cloud lies at the foot of the mountain. A bird of the soul came to men. The hoe sounds in the fields, and the axe in the forests. A wind rushes through the trees, and the sun shimmers in the dew of the risen morning. The planets behold the birth. Out of the earth climb the many-armed. The stones speak, and the grass whispers. Man found himself, and the gods wander through heaven. The fullness gives birth to the golden drop, the golden seed plumed and hovering. The dead now fell silent and stared at Philemon, and slowly crept away. But Philemon bent down to the ground and said, It is accomplished, but not fulfilled. Fruit of the earth, sprout, rise up, and heaven, pour out the water of life. Then Philemon disappeared. I was probably confused when Philemon approached me the following night. Then I called to him, saying, "What did you do, O Philemon? What fires have you kindled? What have you broken asunder? Does the wheel of creation stand still?" But he answered and said, "Everything is running its usual course. Nothing has happened, and yet a sweet and indescribable mystery has taken place. I stepped out of the whirling circle." "What's that?" I exclaimed. "Your words move my lips, your voice sounds from my ears. My eyes see you from within me. Truly, you are a magician. You stepped out of the whirling circle? What confusion! Are you I? Am I you? Did I not feel as if the wheel of creation was standing still? And yet you say that you have stepped out of the whirling circle. I am truly bound to the wheel. I feel the rushing swaying of it, and yet the wheel of creation also stands still for me. What did you do, Father? Teach me." Then Philemon said, "I stepped into what is solid, and took it with me and saved it from the wave surge, from the cycle of birth, and from the revolving wheel of endless happening. It has been stilled. The dead have received the folly of the teaching. They have been blinded by truth and see by mistake. They have recognized, felt, and regretted it. They will come again and will humbly inquire, since what they rejected will be most valuable to them." I wanted to question Philemon, since the riddle distressed me, but he had already touched the earth and disappeared, and the darkness of the night was silent and did not answer me, and my soul stood silently, shaking her head, and did not know what to say about the mystery that Philemon had indicated and not given away. Okay, so that's the text of Sermons 5 and 6. Now I'm going to go back and give you the footnotes. In this 1925 seminar, Jung said, "Sexuality and spirituality are pairs of opposites that need each other." And then he said in the text, "Spirituality conceives and embraces. It is womanlike, and therefore we call it Mater Celestis." And the footnote reads, Goethe's Faust ends with a vision of the Mater Gloriosa. In his lecture, Faust and Alchemy, Jung said of this, the Mater Celestis should on no account be thought of as Mary or the Church. She is rather Aphrodite Urania, as in St. Augustine or Pico de Mirandola, the beautiful Mater. And then the earthly father, he says, he had said, and therefore we call the Phalos the earthly father. And the footnote reads, the Phalos is the creative that moves without limbs, sees without eyes, and knows the future, and as the symbolic representative of ubiquitous creation, power, it claims immortality. And as the symbolic representative of ubiquitous creative power, it claims immortality. Okay. On page 529, they affect us more than the gods, since they are closely akin to our essence. And the footnote reads, the mother is the grail, the phallus is the spear. And then on page 530 it read, community gives us warmth, singleness gives us light. And the footnote reads, Black Book 6 continues, in community we go to the source, which is the mother. In singleness we go to the future, which is the engendering phallus. In October 1916, Jung gave 2 presentations at the Psychological Club concerning the relation of individuation to collective adaptation. This theme dominated the discussions of the club that year. So that is all the footnotes for sermons 5 and 6. Did you notice something special about that, Art? The topic of these 2 sermons is supposed to be the Church and Holy Communion, and yet neither the Church nor Holy Communion was mentioned a single time in those 2 sermons. And so I interpret that to mean that from Dr. Jung's point of view, the processes of spirituality and sexuality represented the Church and Holy Communion, and so that's why that's there. Okay, so I managed to finally get this read into the channel, and tomorrow I'm going to read the last sermon, Man as the Gateway, and that's also a very interesting sermon, but I'll do that tomorrow. And so thank you for joining me this evening. It's late in the East Coast, so I'm going to stop for this evening, but I'll be back tomorrow at about 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you for joining me tonight.